Before he became the most feared man in Korea, before luxury cars lined up outside his mansion, before politicians, billionaires, and celebrities waited weeks just to earn 5 minutes of his attention, there was a time when he walked to school wearing a faded backpack and shoes that had been stitched together more than once. Everyone saw the famous family name he carried. No one saw the lonely boy hiding behind it. Some classmates avoided him because they feared the dangerous reputation surrounding his father. Others pretended to be his friends because they hoped his family could change their future. But one young black woman never treated him like a symbol of power. She laughed with him when he forgot his homework. She shared her lunch when he skipped meals because stress stole his appetite. She reminded him that being born into a powerful family didn't decide what kind of man he would become. Years later, after inheriting an empire worth billions, countless women fought for the chance to become his wife. He rejected every single one. Then, one quiet afternoon, he walked into a small neighborhood cafe where the woman worked, dropped to one knee in front of everyone, and asked the same girl who had believed in him before success changed his life to marry him. What happened after that surprised an entire nation. If you love Korean billionaire romance and mafia love stories like this, subscribe now to Official_Threads and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. Long before newspapers called him Korea's youngest mafia boss, he was simply known as Kang Jae-hun. Jae-hun was tall, quiet, intelligent, and unusually mature for his age. While other teenagers worried about exams or weekend plans, he carried responsibilities no child should ever know. His father led one of the most influential organizations in Korea. To the outside world, they were respected business leaders with investments stretching across Asia. Behind closed doors, everyone understood that the Kang family possessed a level of influence that could shape political decisions, business empires, and the lives of powerful people. Jae-hun never chose that life. He simply happened to be born into it. Every morning, black luxury vehicles dropped him off at school, while suited bodyguards watched from a distance. Instead of making friends, the security only made him feel isolated. Students whispered as he walked through the hallways. "That's him. They say his father owns half the city. My parents told me never to get close to him." Even teachers treated him differently. Some became overly polite. Others kept their distance. Nobody saw the shy teenager who secretly wished someone would simply ask him how his day was. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, another student was beginning a new chapter of her life. Her name was Nia Minsa. She had moved from Ghana to Korea with her widowed mother several years earlier after her mother accepted a teaching opportunity. Life had never been luxurious, but their small apartment overflowed with warmth, laughter, and gratitude. Nia believed that kindness was something people carried, not something money could buy. She loved reading novels, sketching during lunch breaks, and helping classmates who struggled with schoolwork. She quickly noticed something strange about Jae-hun. Everyone either feared him or tried too hard to impress him. Nobody treated him normally. One rainy afternoon, fate quietly brought their worlds together. The school library had nearly emptied after classes ended. Jae-hun sat alone at a corner table, staring at an open textbook without reading a single word. His thoughts were elsewhere. He had just overheard another group of students joking that nobody would ever truly love someone born into a family like his. Their laughter still echoed inside his mind. Without asking permission, someone gently placed a warm carton of chocolate milk beside him. "You've been staring at the same page for almost 20 minutes, a cheerful voice said. He looked up. Standing there was Nia, smiling as though she had known him forever. "You look like someone carrying a mountain on your shoulders." Jae-hun blinked in surprise. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't pretending. She simply sounded genuine. "I'm fine," he answered quietly. She tilted her head. "I don't think people who are fine forget to blink." For the first time in weeks, Jae-hun laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was real. From that afternoon forward, something began to change. Their conversations started with homework. Soon they became discussions about music, dreams, books, and the future. Nia discovered Jae-hun loved photography. He confessed that whenever life became overwhelming, he wandered through quiet streets taking pictures of ordinary people living ordinary lives. "I think they're lucky," he admitted one evening. "Lucky? They get to decide who they want to become." Nia looked at him thoughtfully. "You can decide too." He shook his head. "You don't understand." "No," she replied softly. "I think I do." Her words lingered with him long after they parted ways. Weeks became months. Without realizing it, Jahun started looking forward to school. Not because classes became easier, because Naya was there. She celebrated every small success he achieved. When he scored highest on an exam, she bought him his favorite bread from the bakery. When he won a photography competition, she clapped louder than anyone else. When anxiety overwhelmed him before university entrance exams, she sat beside him beneath a blooming cherry blossom tree until sunset. "You always believe I can do things before I believe it myself," he once told her. She smiled. That's what real friends do. But deep inside, neither of them saw the other as just a friend anymore. Jahun found himself noticing little things. The way her eyes sparkled whenever she became excited about something. The way she always remembered everyone's birthdays. The way she quietly helped lonely students without expecting recognition. Meanwhile, Naya admired the gentle heart hidden beneath Jahun's serious expression. She had seen him secretly pay for another student's school supplies. She had watched him comfort an injured stray puppy instead of walking away. She knew the world misunderstood him. Unfortunately, not everyone appreciated their growing friendship. Rumors quickly spread throughout school. Some students accused Naya of getting close to Jahun because of his wealthy family. Others insisted she wanted a luxurious future. The whispers reached her ears almost daily. One afternoon, a classmate deliberately blocked her path. "So, how much money do you think you'll get?" Naya frowned. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I mean. I'm talking about Jahun. You've chosen the richest boy in school." Several students laughed. Naya remained calm. "If Jahun had no money at all," she answered firmly, "I'd still sit beside him tomorrow." The hallway fell silent. Unknown to everyone, Jahun had been standing around the corner. He had heard every single word. And for the first time in his life, someone had chosen him instead of his family name. That simple sentence quietly settled into his heart. He didn't realize it then, but years later, when the entire world offered him wealth, beauty, and status, he would remember the girl who had looked beyond all of it. What neither of them knew was that graduation was approaching, and with it, a decision that would change both of their lives forever. After graduation, life moved faster than either of them expected. The carefree afternoons they had spent studying in the library were replaced with university lectures, internships, and responsibilities that seemed to multiply overnight. Yet no matter how busy they became, they always found time for each other. Some evenings, Jahun would wait outside Naya's campus with 2 cups of hot chocolate. Other days, she would surprise him with homemade lunch because she knew he often skipped meals whenever work became overwhelming. They never needed expensive gifts to express their feelings. Their favorite moments were the simplest ones. Walking beneath rows of cherry blossom trees. Watching the sunset from the Han River. Laughing over burnt homemade dinners neither of them knew how to cook properly. It felt as though life had finally given Jahun the ordinary happiness he had always dreamed of. But what he didn't know was that destiny was preparing to place an extraordinary burden on his shoulders. One cold winter morning, his phone rang while he was attending an important university seminar. The moment he saw the caller ID, his heart sank. It was the family estate. He stepped outside to answer. The voice on the other end sounded unusually calm. "Young master, your father has collapsed." Everything around him seemed to stop. Within an hour, Jahun arrived at the massive Kong estate, where dozens of luxury vehicles already filled the courtyard. Senior executives, family advisors, lawyers, everyone waited silently. His father's condition continued to worsen over the following weeks. Although they had never shared a warm relationship, Jahun stayed by his bedside every day. One evening, the old man slowly opened his eyes. For the first time in years, he looked less like the feared leader of an empire and more like a tired father. "I wanted to give you a normal life." Jahun remained silent, but our name never allowed it. A weak smile crossed the older man's face. "You became a better man than I ever was." Those were the last words Jahun ever heard from him. His father passed away before sunrise. The funeral attracted politicians, business leaders, foreign investors, and influential families from across Asia. News helicopters circled above the estate. Television stations broadcast every moment live. By the end of the ceremony, one announcement shocked the country. At only 28 years old, Kong Jahun had officially become the new head of the Kong Empire. Overnight, his world transformed. Luxury residences, private jets, international meetings. Bodyguards doubled around him. Every decision he made affected thousands of employees and countless businesses connected to the family. His schedule became so demanding that sleep felt like a luxury. Meanwhile, the media became obsessed with another question. Who would become the wife of Korea's most powerful bachelor? The speculation never stopped. Actresses attended charity galas hoping to meet him. Daughters of wealthy conglomerates suddenly developed an interest in the Kong Foundation. Influencers posted photos outside restaurants he visited. Every week, another rumor appeared online claiming Jaehoon was secretly dating someone beautiful, wealthy, or famous. He ignored every headline. His heart had already made its choice years ago. Meanwhile, Naya continued living exactly as she always had. After graduating, she accepted a position at a small neighborhood cafe that also hosted community reading events. She loved the peaceful atmosphere and dreamed of opening her own cultural cafe someday. She never asked Jaehoon for money, never requested expensive gifts, never expected him to change her life. In fact, the bus stop where they used to meet remained their favorite place. Sometimes Jaehoon's convoy would stop several streets away. He would dismiss his security team for a few minutes and quietly walk to meet her. There, they became the same two young people who once shared chocolate milk in the library. One evening, Naya noticed dark circles beneath his eyes. "When was the last time you rested?" "I'm fine." She smiled knowingly. "You still say that whenever you're exhausted." He laughed softly. "You still catch me every time." She reached into her bag and handed him a neatly wrapped sandwich. "You forgot dinner again." He stared at it before looking back at her. "How do you always know?" "Because," she replied gently, "I've been paying attention for years." Her answer warmed him more than the food ever could. But not everyone appreciated the relationship that continued to grow between them. Inside the Kong mansion, discussions about Jaehoon's future wife became increasingly intense. His grandmother believed only someone from an elite Korean family deserved the Kong name. His uncles wanted a marriage that would strengthen political alliances. Business partners constantly introduced daughters from influential households. During one family dinner, an aunt finally spoke what everyone else had been thinking. "Jaehoon," she began carefully, "you're no longer an ordinary man." He calmly continued eating. "Our family's reputation matters." Still, he remained silent. "You should marry someone suitable." He placed his chopsticks down. "And what exactly does suitable mean?" His grandmother answered without hesitation. "A woman with influence, status, a family equal to ours." Jaehoon's expression remained calm. "I already know someone with greater value than all those things." The room fell silent. His grandmother frowned. "The African woman?" He met her eyes. "Her name is Naya. She's kind. She's honest. And she loved me long before any of you believed I could carry father's responsibilities." His uncle sighed. "Love fades." Jaehoon shook his head. "Greed fades. Status fades. Beauty fades. But the person who stands beside you when you have nothing," he paused, "is the person worth building everything with." No one argued after that. Yet behind the silence, plans quietly began forming. Family members arranged exclusive dinners with wealthy heiresses. Charity events mysteriously invited eligible women. Every gathering became another attempt to change his mind. Jaehoon attended out of respect, but he left every event alone. Weeks later, on an unusually quiet afternoon, he asked his driver to take him somewhere no one expected. Not to the headquarters, not to the mansion, not to another business meeting. Instead, the convoy stopped outside Naya's little neighborhood cafe. She was serving coffee to elderly customers while softly humming to herself. When she looked toward the entrance, she froze. Jaehoon walked inside wearing a simple dark coat instead of his usual tailored suit. The entire cafe grew quiet. Every customer recognized him immediately. Without saying a word, he walked toward Naya. Then, to everyone's astonishment, he slowly knelt on one knee. The cafe became completely silent. He reached into his coat and revealed a small velvet box. Not an enormous diamond chosen to impress the world. Instead, it held an elegant ring designed with a tiny cherry blossom engraved inside the band, a reminder of the tree beneath which they had shared countless conversations as teenagers. His voice trembled ever so slightly. "Naya, when everyone saw my family, you saw me. When everyone expected greatness from me, you reminded me it was enough to simply become a good man. When I doubted myself, you believed for both of us." A tear escaped her eye. He smiled through his own emotions. I've gained wealth I never asked for. I've inherited power I never wanted. But the greatest gift my life has ever given me. He opened the ring box. Has always been you. The cafe held its breath. Then he asked the question that would soon make headlines across the country. Will you marry me? Naya covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. She had dreamed of growing old with him, but she never imagined this moment would come in such a beautiful way. As she looked into the eyes of the boy she had loved before the world knew his name, she realized her answer had never changed. And outside the cafe, hidden behind tinted windows, someone from the Kong family watched everything unfold, already convinced this engagement would never be accepted without a fight. Naya stood frozen as tears shimmered in her eyes. For a brief moment, the entire cafe disappeared from her mind. She no longer saw the customers watching with smiles on their faces. She no longer noticed the cameras outside, where reporters had already begun gathering after recognizing Jehun's convoy. All she saw was the same young man who had once shared a carton of chocolate milk with her in the school library. Only now, he was kneeling before her. Her voice trembled. Yes. Jehun's smile appeared slowly, almost as if he wanted to make sure he had heard her correctly. Then she laughed through happy tears. Yes, I'll marry you. The cafe erupted into applause. Some customers wiped away tears. An elderly couple sitting near the window smiled at each other, quietly remembering their own proposal decades earlier. Jehun gently placed the ring on Naya's finger before standing and wrapping her in a warm embrace. For the first time since inheriting the Kong Empire, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter. But while the world celebrated their engagement, another storm was already forming. Within hours, every major news outlet carried the same headline. Korea's most powerful mafia boss chooses his high school sweetheart over billionaire heiresses. Social media exploded. Some people called it the greatest love story of the decade. Others criticized his decision, insisting someone in his position should marry for influence rather than love. Inside the Kong mansion, the atmosphere became painfully quiet. His grandmother stared at the news without saying a word. Several relatives exchanged disappointed glances. Finally, one uncle broke the silence. This marriage will damage the family's reputation. Another nodded. People will think emotions guide his decisions. His grandmother closed the newspaper. No, they'll think the Kong family has forgotten who they are. Meanwhile, Jehun already knew those conversations were happening, yet he never allowed them to trouble Naya. Instead, he focused on making every step toward their wedding as joyful as possible. One evening, he invited her to the same cherry blossom park where they had spent countless afternoons during high school. I've been thinking, he said as they walked slowly beneath the trees. Naya smiled. That's usually dangerous. He laughed. I want our wedding to feel like us. She looked at him curiously. No unnecessary luxury. No competition. No trying to impress people. Just our families. Our closest friends. And promises we'll actually spend our lives keeping. Naya squeezed his hand. That's exactly what I want. Months later, their wedding day arrived. Instead of an extravagant palace ceremony designed for headlines, they chose a beautiful garden overlooking the mountains just outside Seoul. White flowers lined the pathway. Soft music drifted through the spring air. Cherry blossom petals floated gently across the ground, as if nature itself wanted to celebrate with them. Naya looked breathtaking in a timeless white gown that reflected elegance rather than extravagance. Jehun couldn't hide the emotion in his eyes as he watched her walk toward him. His best friend whispered quietly, I've never seen you nervous. Jehun smiled. I've never had this much to lose. When they finally stood together before the officiant, the world seemed to fade away. Jehun took both of her hands. When I had nothing, you never left. When I questioned myself, you reminded me who I was. I can't promise life will always be easy, but I promise you'll never have to face it alone. Naya's eyes filled with tears. Some relatives welcomed her politely in public, but remained distant in private. Certain guests ignored her during formal dinners. Others questioned whether she understood the responsibilities that came with carrying the Kong name. One afternoon, while helping arrange flowers before a family gathering, she accidentally overheard two distant relatives speaking. She's kind, but kindness isn't enough. She'll never truly belong here. The word stung, not because she doubted herself, but because she worried they might eventually influence Jehun. She returned to their room unusually quiet that evening. Jehun noticed immediately. You've barely said 10 words since dinner. She forced a smile. I'm just tired. He gently lifted her chin. You've never been able to hide your feelings from me. That simple sentence broke the wall she had tried to build. She told him everything. Every whispered comment. Every cold smile. Every moment she wondered if she was making his life harder. When she finished, silence filled the room. Jahun slowly took both of her hands. Look at me. She did. I married you. Not because everyone approved. Not because it was easy. I married you because you're the person I want beside me when life becomes difficult. He smiled warmly. If people need time to understand that, we'll give them time. But I'll never ask you to become someone else just to make them comfortable. Naya felt tears rolling down her cheeks again. Not tears of sadness. Tears of relief. From that night forward, they made an unspoken promise. They would never allow outside opinions to become private secrets. Whenever something hurt, they talked. Whenever misunderstandings appeared, they listened. Whenever responsibilities became overwhelming, they faced them together. That habit slowly became the strongest foundation of their marriage. Months turned into years. The empire continued expanding across Asia. Jahun became known as a calm, respected leader whose decisions balanced strength with compassion. Employees admired him. Business partners trusted him. But every evening, no matter how demanding his schedule became, one rule remained unchanged. Dinner belonged to his family. Phones stayed away. Meetings could wait. Those quiet meals became the most important appointment on his calendar. Then, one rainy afternoon, another beautiful chapter quietly began. Naya nervously held a small envelope in her hands while Jahun returned home from work. I have something to show you. He looked at her curious expression. What is it? Instead of answering, she simply handed him the envelope. He opened it carefully. Inside was a tiny ultrasound picture. For several seconds, he couldn't speak. His eyes moved from the image to Naya, then back again. Is this? She nodded with a radiant smile. We're going to be parents. Jahun's eyes instantly filled with tears. The feared head of the Kong Empire, the man who never showed weakness in front of rivals, could no longer stop himself from crying. He wrapped Naya in the gentlest embrace of his life. At that moment, he realized something extraordinary. Becoming the head of the Kong Empire had changed his title. Marrying Naya had changed his heart. But becoming a father would change his entire world. Little did they know, the arrival of their first child would also begin to soften even the hardest hearts within the Kong family, leading to moments neither of them ever thought possible. The day their first child was born, the entire Kong family gathered at the hospital. For once, no one spoke about business. No one discussed investments, alliances, or the future of the empire. Everyone simply waited. Jahun had attended countless high-stakes meetings without ever feeling nervous. But standing outside the delivery room, he couldn't stop pacing. His palms were sweaty. His heart raced every time he heard movement behind the door. One of the nurses smiled. You can sit down if you'd like. Congratulations. You have a healthy baby girl. Jahun rushed inside. Naya looked exhausted, but her face glowed with happiness as she carefully held their tiny daughter. The little girl's fingers wrapped around Jahun's index finger. At that exact moment, the powerful businessman, the feared Mafia boss, simply disappeared. He became nothing more than a father completely in love with his child. I've never seen anything so beautiful, he whispered. Naya smiled softly. I have. She looked at him. The way you're looking at her. They named their daughter Mina, a name that reminded them of hope and new beginnings. 2 years later, their family grew again with the arrival of a cheerful little boy named June. Their once quiet home was now filled with laughter, tiny footsteps, bedtime stories, toys scattered across the living room, and endless memories waiting to be made. Although Jahun remained responsible for one of Korea's most influential empires, he quietly created one rule that every executive learned never to question. No matter how important a meeting was, if it conflicted with family dinner, the meeting would be moved. Some business partners found it surprising. Others admired him even more. Because despite carrying immense responsibilities, he never allowed success to steal the moments that mattered most. Every Friday became family movie night. Every Saturday morning began with homemade pancakes, even if Jahun occasionally burned them. The children laughed every single time. Naya teased him. You know you're one of the richest men in Korea? You could hire the best chef in the country. Jahun grinned. I could. But then the kids wouldn't get to laugh at my cooking. Sure enough, little Mina would always giggle. Daddy made black pancakes again. Even June joined in. They're crunchy. The kitchen filled with laughter. Those imperfect breakfasts became family traditions their children would remember forever. As the years passed, birthdays became magical celebrations. Jehun personally decorated the house every year, refusing to leave everything to event planners. Colorful balloons covered the ceilings. Handwritten cards sat beside every birthday gift. Every present reflected something personal rather than expensive. When Mina became interested in painting, he built her a small art studio overlooking the garden. When June developed a love for astronomy, father and son spent countless evenings lying on blankets in the backyard, searching for constellations together. Meanwhile, Naya filled their home with warmth that money could never purchase. She taught their children gratitude. She reminded them to greet every employee by name. She encouraged them to volunteer during holidays and appreciate simple joys. Whenever reporters praised the Kong family's luxurious lifestyle, the children often smiled without fully understanding. Their happiest memories had nothing to do with wealth. They remembered camping beside peaceful lakes, building sandcastles during family vacations, watching sunsets while eating ice cream together, dancing barefoot in the living room whenever their favorite songs played. One summer, the family traveled to a quiet seaside village rather than an exclusive private island. Bodyguards remained at a respectful distance while the four of them collected seashells along the beach. That evening, Mina asked a question that caught both parents by surprise. "Daddy, were you always rich?" Jehun smiled gently. "No. What were you then?" He looked toward Naya. "I was someone still trying to figure out who I wanted to become." Mina tilted her head. "Then how did Mommy know you'd become amazing?" Naya laughed softly. "I didn't. I just knew he already had a kind heart." Jehun reached for her hand beneath the table. Even after all those years, that answer still touched him deeply. Meanwhile, something unexpected had quietly been happening within the Kong family. The relatives who once questioned Naya slowly began seeing what Jehun had always seen. She never tried to change the family. She simply loved them. She remembered birthdays, visited elderly relatives even when Jehun was away on business, prepared homemade meals for family gatherings, listened without judging. Over time, walls that had taken decades to build slowly crumbled. One afternoon, Jehun's grandmother invited Naya for tea. Neither woman spoke for several minutes. Finally, the elderly woman broke the silence. "I owe you an apology." Naya looked surprised. "I judged you before I knew you." She lowered her eyes. "I believed our family name deserved someone extraordinary." A gentle smile appeared on her face. "I didn't realize. Someone extraordinary had already walked into our lives." Naya's eyes became misty. The older woman reached across the table and held her hand. "Thank you for loving my grandson when he didn't yet know how to love himself." It was the acceptance neither of them had expected. And somehow, it meant more because it had taken time. Years continued passing. Mina and June grew into kind, compassionate young adults. They inherited their father's determination and their mother's gentle heart. The Kong Empire flourished beyond anything Jehun's father had imagined. Business magazines called him one of the greatest leaders of his generation. Universities invited him to deliver speeches. Governments sought his advice. Awards filled his office. Yet one quiet autumn evening, after returning home from another international conference, Jehun walked into the backyard where Naya sat watching the sunset. Their children had already grown and begun building lives of their own. The house felt peaceful again, much like the early days of their love story. He carried 2 cups of hot chocolate, just as he had during their university years. Naya laughed the moment she saw them. "You remembered." "I always will." They sat side by side as golden light painted the sky. After a long silence, Naya asked quietly, "If you could go back, would you change anything?" Jehun looked around. The home they had built together, the family photographs hanging inside, the laughter that still echoed in his memories, the woman who had walked beside him through every season of life. He smiled. "When I was younger, I thought becoming the head of the Kong Empire would be my greatest achievement." He gently intertwined his fingers with hers. "I was wrong." She looked at him curiously. He turned toward her, his eyes filled with the same love they had shared since high school. "My greatest achievement was convincing the girl who loved me before anyone else to become my wife." Tears quietly filled Naya's eyes. He kissed her forehead just as he had done countless times before. Then he whispered the words he had carried in his heart for decades. When I had nothing, you loved me. Now that I have everything, I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt how much I love you. Naya rested her head against his shoulder as the sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon. Their story had never been about wealth. It had never been about power. It had never been about carrying the famous Khan family name. It was about two ordinary hearts choosing each other again and again, even as life changed around them. Because true love isn't measured by what someone owns after success arrives. It's revealed by who stays beside you before the world notices your worth. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. The strongest relationships are not built on status, beauty, or influence. They are built on trust, loyalty, patience, honest communication, and the courage to choose each other every single day. Success may attract many people, but only genuine love remains when the applause fades. In the end, the greatest legacy we leave behind is not the empire we build, but the family we nurture and the hearts we cherish. If you made it this far, let us know where you're watching from and comment your favorite moment below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Official_Threads for more emotional Mafia love stories.